Here we go.
Hmm. My spectator is really messed up.
Uh oh.
I'm just running around as a ghost. I can't like follow anyone.
All right. Well, I will. Do you see like people on the sides? Can you click on them or no?
Nope. I think I have the add-on off, but I can't like float around. Oh well.
Gotcha.
I'm gonna have no idea what's going on in this game whatsoever.
All right. Well, I will help Lore out from solo casting.
Yeah,
Good.
it's you too.
All right. Here we go. The game is about to start, and I'm so excited to see what happens here. I mean, Dillypoo and Peekaboo, they've seen them before. Even in 6.1, they just do crazy amounts of damage, and the damage is increased now. It's definitely a much more fast-paced game, and I think that works in their favor, specifically these two players. With the Shroud coming out from Peekaboo, they're looking to get an opener. The sap going out onto Rubcubs. And it looks like they're going to be opening up onto Black Jeff right away with the Crows and the Garrote as well. The trap onto Rubcubs into the full cycle and from Cubsy. This team is looking for a crazy good opener. And it looks like they're swapping it over onto Beats by Drake.
Love that name, Beats by Drake. He is in a little bit of trouble there. He's going to have to use the gateway to get out of there, as he did have that Garrote active. Wow, chunking down to 20% health. Proccing that Saved by the Light, but he does get the execution sentence, and he'll be okay for now. Cubsy getting silenced, and Dillypoo in that Fist of Justice as well. Dilly could be in some trouble here, getting kind of caught out in the middle a little bit, but it looks like he's going to be just fine for now, as the blind into the trap onto Rubcub. Looking like they're trying to match something up onto Beats by Drake yet again, but no, he's actually doing a great job right now getting out of line of sight whenever his healer is CC'd. Very good presence of mind to be able to duck away, and you can start to see how that Affliction Warlock damage is really starting to make life miserable for Cubsy, as his entire team is just rotting like crazy, even though we're only a few seconds into this game.
Yeah, Cubsy, he's trying to keep everyone up a lot, and it doesn't look like Every Kill Begins with K really accomplished all that much there, but as I say that, they're going to be doing a whole bunch more damage onto Beats by Drake, but Rubcub not in any CC just yet is healing him through all this, and Cubsy is the one who's in the background scared by all the damage. Every Kill Begins with K, and that was a smoke bomb, but it is going to be bopped, and that was Bestial Wrath as well. Rubcub's trading that bop for a lot of offensive cooldowns on Every Kill Begins with K.
Yeah, and they're in a lot of trouble now because they've used so many offensive cooldowns and they really didn't get anywhere on Don't Do Drugs, and they're still just rotting like crazy from the spread pressure from both Beats by Drake and Black Jeff. Just tons of just dots constantly, just dots all day basically. They did manage to get a good chunk there on Beats by Drake for just a second, dipping him down to about 40k health, but the execution sentence came out and he's going to be totally fine. Cubsy in a little bit of trouble, having to blink out of there and popping the Bark Skin as well to try and keep himself a little bit safe, and his mana is actually really starting to suffer, down to 40% mana. He's not going to be able to keep up dealing with this rot pressure for too much longer. He does actually have to drop the Iron Bark onto Dillypoo, and Peekaboo having to use his evasion as well, just trying to limit as much of this damage as possible, give Cubsy a little bit of a break, but his mana is still dropping like crazy. We do have a trap on a Rubcub, and Beats by Drake actually caught into a cheap shot there for just a second into the Garrote. Does get the Blessing of Protection to stop that damage coming out, but Rubcub hasn't really been able to heal him up just yet. There we go. So now he's actually getting a couple of heals out. The Kidney Shot comes out onto him to try and limit that, but it looks like he's going to be able to top Beats by Drake back up again.
Yeah, now the aggression is on the other side. Cubsy in that Hodge, and he's doing so much damage to him. Jeff is just exploding him, and he will go down. Oh my goodness, that Frosty K dual-wielding one-hander is just so much damage. And there we have it. Taking a look at that damage done. Black Jeff actually doing 3.7 million and Beats by Drake doing 5.7. But to give you guys a reference, both TSM, Peekaboo, and Dillypoo did around 2.5 million. So crazy amounts of pressure coming out from this Warlock DK team.
Yeah. It just never really seemed like the team was ever in trouble. And that's pretty incredible considering how much damage rogues and hunters do.
Yeah, I felt like there were a couple of windows that Every Kill Begins with K had to try and get a kill there, but Don't Do Drugs just did a great job of diffusing all those situations and pulling away and just peeling like crazy. So
Yeah.
Peekaboo and Dillypoo were just never able to really connect for long enough to actually get a kill.
Yeah, essentially Jeff was just hitting any target he could and trying to survive, and basically they can just put out as much damage as they want. Eventually they'll either land sort of like a Gib like they just did with the Hodge Strangulate combo, or they'll just end up booming like victory through attrition kind of thing.
Yeah.
As long as they don't die, they're going to win the game.
Yeah, for sure. Black Jeff, he puts out a ton of burst damage with, there was a change to, I believe it's the talent's called Might of the Frozen Waste, that increased the damage that dual-wielding Frost does in 6-2. So, like, you can look at the, if you were looking at the, I've still got the damage meter up afterwards, the scoreboard up afterwards. He only did a 55k Frost Strike, but that's just going to be one of the 2 hits from the dual wield.
Yeah.
So that's, if it's 2
It's a
hits
bit
for
misleading,
55k, then that's a lot of damage.
It's a good point. It is a good point. Now, the next map that's going to be chosen by Every Kill Begins with K, they're going to bring it to a much larger map. They're going to bring it to Tolvaron Arena. Much more open map, and here we go. I'll see you guys in just one hot minute. Alright, welcome to Tolvaron Arena. Don't Do Drugs versus Every Kill Begin with K, and both teams are running with the same composition that they did in game number 1. Oh, but man, I don't know. Personally, I feel like this Thug Cleave needs to have a much stronger opener if they want to take a win off of Don't Do Drugs. What do you think that this Thug Cleave needs to do differently that they didn't in the first game?
Honestly, I'm not even sure. Like, they might want to try a strategy of going on the Paladin and trying to CC the DPS as much as possible, control some of that Warlock damage. But all 3 targets are very, very tanky, and if they leave the Warlock and DK alone for too long while training the Paladin, they're just going to fall behind. It's going to be a nightmare for them. So I really don't know who they should hit or what strategy would be best, because it seems really hard from the Thug Cleave perspective.
Yeah, and I don't think that they can really win against this team by trying to keep up pressure, so maybe just playing a lot more defensively until they have offensive cooldowns available. But here we go. Sap on a Rub Cub and Beats by Drake is the target of choice for the time being. There's a Trap on a Rub Cub as well, and the Garrote on the Beats by Drake. He actually dips down to about 28% health, but the Save by the Light does proc, and the execution sentence comes out, so he's going to be totally fine for now. Rub Cub actually popping his Avenging Wrath as well, just to be sure, and try to defuse the opener. But Cubsy in trouble here, down to 30% health, having to pop the Iron Bark, getting kind of stuck out in the middle of nowhere here. Could maybe want to, yeah, he's actually going to get a little bit closer to this pillar over here. But Dilly Poo now getting chunked down to 20% health. This Ebola, or excuse me, the Don't Do Drugs team is just doing crazy damage to individual people at a time. They switch to one, and all of a sudden they're down to 20% health.
Yeah, what's happening is, I mean, as soon as Beats by Dre is being attacked, he just pulls behind the pillar, and then Cubsy has to push in. It's a great target for Jeff to go onto right away, but that is the sack as well as the bop going out by Beats by Dre. A second sack actually coming out from Rub Cub, so that's both sacks onto him, trying to prevent some of that damage to Aura Mastery coming out as well. Rub Cub still has a bubble and a bop available for Beats by Drake. That is the full hodge on the Cubsy. He has no bark skin, so he's just going to trinket that right away. He wants no part of it. The Strangulate also going on to Cubsy, but not really going to accomplish too much. Beats by Drake taking a lot of damage right now. That's the Smoke Bomb coming out from Peekaboo. Rub Cub into that full trap. He does have bubble as well as a bop available. Beats by Drake still has some offensive cooldowns up with his Dark Soul, sorry. So at some point that's going to be really scary if he's able to survive this, but I don't know if he's going to be able to. The bubble coming out really late from Rub Cubs. And it looks like Beats by Drake going to go down. A little bit of a greedy play there. And once again, Dilly Poo and TSM Peekaboo just showing how much damage they can do.
Yeah, that game was pretty amazing. I mean, the bomb, and then during the duration of the Holy Paladin trying to run into that bomb, which is 2 feet in front of him, Dilly Poo was able to get a trap out of that and just rotating through that CC like crazy. And yeah, right there, they tried to hold on to their defensives and be frugal about it, but they just couldn't. And now we're going to tie up that series 1-1 here in a best of 3. Or I'm sorry, this is a best of 5. So it's the team that actually reaches 3 wins is going to be advancing to the finals. But this is single elim, guys. Don't forget. So the team that loses this series will be eliminated from the tournament entirely.
Yeah, and I feel like that's exactly what Every Kill Begins with K needs in those situations. Like, obviously, like you were saying, they got a little bit too greedy with the defensive cooldowns out of Rub Cub. Waited a little bit too long on that bubble and maybe should have used a bop or something in there as well. I think he still had one of those available. But that's kind of those burst windows is the only way that I really think that Every Kill Begins with K is going to be able to seal those kills here, just because of the sheer amount of defensive cooldowns that are available from Don't Do Drugs.
Yeah.
Alright, well, I'm going to get in contact with these guys. Every kill begins with K will be locking in their composition, which is going to be that Thug Cleave with a Restoration Druid. And I'm going to go ahead and ask Don't Do Drugs if they want to change their comp and what map they want next, as they were the losing team of the last round. But I mean, they're going to take their time with this and really make a decision. I guess the next map that they are going to request...
I'd have to guess a smaller map, probably.
You have
Ruins
guessed...
of Lordaeron or Dalaran.
Yep, they are going to go ahead and request Dalaran Sewers. You're absolutely right, man.
Yep.
Here we go. The Wargame request has been sent out, and I'll see you guys in just one hot minute. Let me just slash reload, guys, and then we'll jump into this. Here we go. We are on Dalaran Sewers. So, like you said, it is a much smaller map. But I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. After watching these two games here, I'm unconvinced that a map is going to be the big deciding factor to which team is going to win. It's going to be intense.
Yeah, I think in the previous map on Tolvaron, it did work out to be a little bit of an advantage for Every Kill Begins with K because of how Beats by Drake kept running behind pillars. And he kind of got out of line of sight of his healer on a couple of occasions, and it just took a little bit longer for Rubcub to actually get over to him. But that's the sort of thing that's easily, like, that's just a mistake. That's not a map advantage, really. So I'm not sure that the smaller map really has a strong advantage for either team here.
Well, I think it's going to be a lot easier for Jeff and Beats by Drake to get the damage on the Cubsy they need. That's why he wanted the bigger map. So if he is being targeted, it's much easier for him to kite away. And on this map, it's a little bit harder.
Yeah, for sure. So moving in here, we do have the opener coming out, Rubcub into that trap. They're going on to Beats by Drake yet again. He's actually getting cut in a cheap shot there, so the bop is going to come out, and he's going to actually Demonic Circle out of there as well, just to be as safe as possible here. He knows that they've got that massive burst potential. Don't want to take any risks and get caught out like they did in the last game. He's actually going to gateway away now, as well as Peekaboo is actually taking a whole bunch of damage, having to pop his evasion here to try and stay alive. Dillypoo getting the Iron Bark as well. Cubsy just doing as much as he can to keep up with this rot pressure, and he's doing actually a pretty great job of it at this point, just managing to keep everybody alive. But he's already spent a quarter of his mana bar, and we haven't even been in this game for a full minute yet.
He just got gripped in bear form. Well done by him. Popping that Barksian, has no Iron Bark available. He's going to survive that swap, but that is exactly what Jeff wants. He's going to be continuously gripping in Cubsy, slowly working through his cooldowns, and really the Slug Cleave didn't accomplish too much in the opener besides getting Beats by Drake's heals out. Beats by Drake still has a Dark Soul available, and Cubsy's not going to have that Nature's Vigil in response. Rubcub's into that full trap right now. Beats by Drake in a little bit of trouble. That is the Crows, but Rubcub answering that with Avenging Wrath. He's going to have a lot of additional healing, but he is continuously getting CC'd. He trinkets into another clone, catching a huge heal on Beats by Drake, though. This is a second Demon Soul coming out, so Cubsy's going to have a lot of work ahead of him.
Yeah, they've managed to pull so many defensive cooldowns out of Rubcub at this point, though. He does still have his bubble and one bop remaining, but he doesn't have wings and he won't have his trinket for quite a while. Dillypoo having to use the deterrence, though, taking tons of damage even through that deterrence. Cubsy just not able to really keep him going. There we go. Nice big heal comes out from Cubsy there with that Nature Swiftness to top him back off. But now Cubsy in some trouble, getting over here out of line of sight and actually channeling the Tranquility for a little bit, taking that opportunity, then immediately jumping into bear form as soon as he sees Black Jeff coming over there. Good presence of mind there from Cubsy to be able to do that. Now, Peekaboo getting CC'd constantly. At this point, Don't Do Drugs is just trying to limit that damage as much as possible while they are waiting for some of those defensive cooldowns to come up. There's Execution Sentence in 10 more seconds for Rubcub, at which point I think they'll be a little bit safer. But actually, Rubcub choosing to bubble a blind there, I don't really feel like he really needed to use it at that point, so I'm curious what his thought process was behind using it. But he does have to use the Execution Sentence onto Beats by Drake to keep him alive, as there is now a whole lot of pressure coming out onto him. And I think in this situation, like now he's got no defensive cooldowns available. They're going to have to start to play a lot more defensively, but no, they're actually going to come out here and try to push Every Kill Begins with K back a little bit and try to put on some pressure themselves.
Yeah, I think Rubcub's used his bubble there just because he had no healing cooldowns. He was waiting for his Avenging Wrath to come up, and he didn't want to fall behind on healing again and have a really hard time topping off Beats by Drake. Cubsy into the full Hodge is deciding to trinket that. He still has Bark Skin for the next swap, so he should be okay for now, but his mana is down to 22%. Dampening has not even kicked in. Rubcub's doing an excellent job there, sacking Dillypoo's Wyvern, so he's going to get out of that CC, able to easily top off Beats by Drake with that Avenging Wrath, and now the pressure is back onto this Slug Cleave. they're pulling back a little bit. Cubsy is He's going to want to go for a drink, and if he's not able to get it, Jeff can stop it. This game's going to end very soon. Like I said, this isn't even into dampening. Cubsy's having such a hard time healing through this rot of this DK on this Warlock.
Yeah, he's spent almost his whole mana bar out down to 20% mana at this point, so he is, like you say, not going to be able to keep this up for too much longer. We do have a cheap shot out on a Beats by Drake, but Rubcub is not having to deal with any CC at all, so it's just no problem to be able to heal through that. Dillypoo looking like he might be in a little bit of trouble here. Cubsy's caught in a full fist of justice, actually using the bark skin on himself because he's taking a little bit of damage himself, just wants to limit that damage as much as possible. Peekaboo does use his Shadow Dance, trying to make something happen onto Beats by Drake over here, as we do have the Wyvern coming out onto Rubcub, into the trap as well. So this is a fairly long CC chain. Rubcub does have his trinket now with that kidney shot coming on him. He's going to have to use that right away and use the execution sentence on Beats by Drake as well. But yeah, this is looking like Cubsy, with his only 15% mana now remaining, he's going to be running out very, very shortly, and they're just not going to be able to keep up with all this spread pressure from Don't Do Drugs.
Yeah, Jeff really wants to connect on to Cubsy now. They need to get the Hodge Strangulate combo. This is the time they can score a kill. He has no trinket, no bar skin for another 20 seconds. But Cubsy knows this. He's just LOSing the best he can. Actually going down for a drink right now, getting a little bit of mana, but Jeff able to stop that. And Cubsy's still in a little bit of trouble for another 6 seconds, but Dillypoo looks like he is the target of choice, getting destroyed right now. That's the full Strangulate onto Cubsy. Dillypoo in that deterrence, but just so many dots on him right now. The Iron Bark coming out of Cubsy is going to be able to top off Dillypoo with that Iron Bark, hopefully, but this is the Dark Soul as well as the Avenging Wrath coming out of Rubcubs. If Rubcubs can get off some damage, this could be very, very scary. Paladins do have a lot of damage, especially with those wings up. Beats by Drake, the target of choice. The BM Crows coming out from Dillypoo onto Beats by Drake. They could actually score a kill here. Bop coming up in 4 seconds. Sable the Light proccing onto Beats by Drake. But a huge heal. Execution sentence, pardon me, coming out with that Avenging Wrath. Cubsy now into the full Hodge, down to 7% mana. And like I said, Rubcub still has a Bop avail for Beats by Drake for the next BM Crows, which are coming up in around 30 seconds. And that's going to be really Dillypoo and Peekaboo's opportunity to kill, and if Rubcubs use that button at the right time, they're going to be able to defuse it.
Yeah, definitely. It's about 14 seconds now remaining on Peekaboo's Shadow Dance as well, so basically that's their last hope, I think, in this match, is once those Crows and that Shadow Dance come up, they need to be able to line those up and get a kill onto Beats by Drake when that happens. Cubsy into that trap, though, into the full Fist of Justice. He's going to have to trinket that right away, even though he doesn't have a whole lot of mana to actually cast healing spells at this point. But there's the full Strangulate onto him. Dillypoo caught into the Smoke Bomb. Cubsy is still not able to get the heal off, but Dillypoo actually didn't take as much damage as I was really expecting there. And now the Crows have come out. The Shadow Dance was active there for just a second as well, but they were not able to get that kill during that. Rubcub, though, into the full Cyclone. Going to have to trinket that to try and keep Beats by Drake alive, and he's actually feeling just fine at the moment. He's even got execution sets available. Peekaboo dipping down to 30% health here. Gonna have to try and run away. He's actually just kiting at the moment, trying to get away, and his whole team over here trying to get behind line of sight to be able to heal back up a little bit. But there's the full Fist onto Cubsy. Dillypoo may be the target of choice. It doesn't even matter who their target is at this point. They're all so low. Cubsy in trouble, having to use that big heal on himself with that Nature's Swiftness to try and top himself back off here. But I don't think they're going to be able to hold on for too much longer. Cubsy is now completely out of mana, 2% mana remaining. He's just not going to be able to do much anymore. If they don't get a kill within the next like 10-15 seconds, this game is going to be over.
Yeah, Beats by Drake actually getting knocked away by Dillypoo. Well done by him. He's very far away from his port right now, so he's actually a pretty good target, but the rot pressure just coming out. Eventually Peekaboo going to go down, Cubsy into that full Hodge Strangulate, and the rot was just too much, and this time Don't Do Drugs did a much better job managing their defensive cooldowns, and it's just so hard for this Thug Cleave. I think if they're going to win, they really have to capitalize on mistakes, and if Jeff, Beats by Drake, and Rubcub don't make many mistakes, it's a very uphill battle.
There it is, and that's a 2-1 victory for Don't Do Drugs, but this is a best of 5. They have every kill begins with K, still has an opportunity to maybe go to the finals, but Don't Do Drugs, this Warlock DK team just seems so very strong with their survivability and their consistent pressure. But we're going to see here. Now it is going to be every kill with K map choice and also composition choice if they choose to take that advantage. Well, taking a quick look at that score screen for you guys. Beats by Drake doing 10 million damage. Jeff right behind him with the 9.4 million damage versus the 6 million and 4 million damage from Dilly and Peekaboo. You can see the difference there, but each comp does bring their own, I guess, advantages. You definitely saw a lot more CC time on that Warlock DK, or on Rubcub specifically. But here we go. Going into game number 4 of this best of 5 series. And it looks like... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think it's also important to point out that, like, 10 million damage, 9 million damage, obviously they won, and they won due to their rot pressure because there was so much of it. But 10 million damage over however long that match was, like 7-8 minutes, something like that. That's great, but if you can do 1 million damage in the span of a few seconds,
Right.
That's still a win. So it's not necessarily the be-all, end-all, like one comp did so much more damage than the other.
Yeah, PvP damage meters aren't
Aren't the same as PvE necessarily.
Yeah,
All
maybe it's really hard to compare. Maybe sometimes in like a mirror you can see who's doing more damage, and that'll end up mattering. But in comps like this, I don't think it matters too much.
Not at all. I mean, when these guys, they just need to get their setup right one time. And if the enemy team isn't quick enough to respond with their defensive cooldowns, that could be a win, as we've seen them in the past. But here we go. This is game number 4. And Don't Do Drugs, they are 1 win away from advancing to the finals here on Tiger's Peak. Tiger's Peak was chosen by Every Kill Begins with K. I guess it's not necessarily a huge map. It's definitely a middle of the road sized map here. But here we go. The gates are about to open.
Yeah, Peekaboo already using that Shroud of Concealment. They want to try to get a good opener. I'm not exactly sure who they should open up onto. I think if they can get the CC out onto Beats by Drake and Black Jeff, that Rubcub might actually be a good target. But it looks like once again they want to open onto Beats by Drake. Rubcub getting that, getting sapped right away. TSM Peekaboo actually using his Shadow Dance right in the opener. They have a lot of upfront pressure. Dillypoo deciding to save his BM Crow, so they're going to have that for the next round of damage once Rubcub's Avenging Wrath perhaps fades, or the next CC they can get on him. And that might be a little bit scary for them once he uses that ability.
Yeah, kind of like the strategy of splitting up the offensive cooldowns there. Dillypoo actually taking a lot of damage, by the way, as this is going on, getting that Iron Bark as Cubsy is sitting through that Strangulate. But I do like the idea of not maybe necessarily lining up their cooldowns quite as much, just to try and get as many defensive cooldowns out as they possibly can, and then still have more offensive cooldowns available. That said, this is still looking like Don't Do Drugs is doing great at surviving through everything so far. I don't think anybody's really been in any high risk of damage. Obviously, Beats by Drake has been taking a lot of hits as this match has been going on. And now the Smoke Bomb coming out. Rubcub is actually a pretty long distance away, but Beats by Drake just going to go ahead and use his Dark Regen, and he'll be totally fine through that as the Smoke Bomb has now worn off. So I feel like Don't Do Drugs, like I was saying, is actually, they're still in very much a commanding presence here. It's just going to be a question of when those offensive cooldowns come back up again for Every Kill Begins with K, are they going to be able to give themselves a nice window to quickly score a kill?
They've actually been working through Rubcub's cooldowns quite nicely, already down a Trinket as well as Bubble. Beats by Drake has no Dark Regen as well, and Dillypoo has his Crows coming up in around 3 seconds. So the next CC chain on Rubcub's, Beats by Drake could be in a ton of trouble unless Rubcub can get a quick bop off if he's able to. Cubsy caught into that full Hodge, Dillypoo getting the pre-Iron Bark there. TSM Peekaboo actually the target of choice right now, deciding to Cloak of Shadows. He wants to reconnect onto Beats by Drake. They see this is a great time, and Jeff knows that. He did a great job right there, gripping Peekaboo off, trying to delay this swap as long as possible because he knows they're in a little bit of trouble with no more defensive cooldowns.
Yeah, definitely. We do have the Kidney Shot coming out onto Beast by Drake, and Rubcub in that full trap as well. But they just really weren't able to get as much damage as I think they wanted during that Kidney. Now as that trap is still going, now a full clone onto Rubcub. Beast by Drake just goes down. Nice long CC chain, recognizing that Rubcub has no CC breaks available for him. And that's it. That's 2-2.
2-2. I love it. Here we go. Semifinals of tournament number 20. It is a tied game, and now match point as Every Kill Begins with K does land that kill onto the Warlock. I'm really curious to know. So match point, this DK, Warlock, and Holy Pally team does have the opportunity to change the map to their liking and also change the comp. But I don't know if we're going to see any changes. Neither team has changed this entire series so far. I'd be interested to see if they do make a change. Oh man, just taking a quick look at that replay one more time on that last setup. It was just so beautiful seeing the Crows out of the dance and all the CC chains that they just held onto their DRs for dear life for that setup is a very, very, very well done by Every Kill Begins with K.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely.
And all they did was, well, what they did essentially was rotate Dance and rotate BM Crow. So every 30 seconds, they got to have a huge upfront pressure. Every single CC chain they did, they got to have one big cooldown coming out from either the Rogue or the Hunter. And they just slowly worked through Bubble, Trinket, Regen, Warlock Trinket, and then they ended up scoring a kill.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Whew. So I'm going to get in contact with these guys. Clutter already talking to them. Don't do drugs. They need a moment. And I'm going to go ahead and ask, every kill begins with K, what composition they're going to be playing.
I think this match, this series is also a good example of why that first game is so important, because both teams have always won on their map picks. Like whenever they got to pick a map, they've won. But since Don't Do Drugs was able to win the first match on Nagrand, Nagrand. I always say that wrong. I'm retarded. Since they were able to get that first match, now they have the opportunity once again to choose a map, and I would be surprised if they don't go Lordaeron, honestly. Like, I would really expect to see that personally, so that's going to be a tough match. That said, however, Lordaeron is also a pretty good map for Thug, so I don't know. I'm excited about this next match. I think it's going to be really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. It's
Thanks.
no, for real. It's classic, like sort of rot comp versus the setup comp, and really we see the rot comp doing the best they can to just get out as much pressure and stop CC, but it's really hard with the subtlety rogue, because he's able to off kidney or off cheap shot to set up those traps really easy for Dillypoo, and it's really hard for them to do anything about it. Just a cheap shot and a trap, and then at the same time the Warlock's getting stunned, so it's sort of hard to stop those swaps.
It is, though. Jeff is doing a pretty good job, as you pointed out in that game. When they were out of those defensive cooldowns and they were vulnerable, Jeff knew it, and he would position himself where he would grip Peekaboo away from the Warlock. And you know, little stuff like that is really exciting for me to hear you guys point out, because for me personally, that's not something I would necessarily notice. So that was really cool. But here we go. I'm so excited to see what happens in this very last game. Both of these teams desperately want to win here, guys, and a lot is on the line. And here we go. Jeff taking a few minutes to talk to his team and get everything ready, because they are in it to win it right here in the next map. Whoa! Oh. He's changing his mind about 4 different times on the next map. Oh, he changed his mind to Ruins of Lordaeron. Now, we've talked about this a million times before. Ruins of Lordaeron is one of those maps that may backfire. But here we go. Let's see what happens. The last map of this best of 5 series in the semifinals will be Ruins of Lordaeron. Alright everybody, welcome to Ruins of Lordaeron. It's tied 2-2. Every kill begins with Clay versus Don't Do Drugs here in the first semifinals match of tournament number 20. Both teams choosing to continue to run the same composition, and it's been a very even series so far between this Thug Cleave and this DK Warlock Paladin team.
It's going to be very easy for Drake to keep up his dots on Cubsy, so Cubsy's going to have a really hard time healing through this. His entire team is going to be fully dotted the entire game, and Jeff is just going to be able to easily connect onto really anyone. So Peekaboo and Dillypoo, Cubsy, all going to be on a time limit. They need to make something happen fast and control their opponents, or it's going to be really hard for Cubsy to handle this pressure.
Yeah, definitely. Peekaboo moving in here with that Shroud, going to try and get that sap on a Rubcub. Actually didn't quite move in to grab it. Looks like they're waiting for just a second to try and get the best setup possible. Peekaboo just sitting around over here looking for his opportunity. There's now the cheap shot on the Rubcub, and jumping over onto Beats by Drake right away. Actually got a triple cheap shot off in the middle of all that, which is nice as an opener there. Rubcub now into that trap as well, but immediately Beats by Drake just portaling right out of there. Doesn't want anything to do with any of that. Wants to take no damage at all, and now Cubsy may be in a little bit of trouble here as he's kiting Black Jeff around these the tomb here in the center, having to spend most of his time in bear form and kind of actually leaving Dillypoo and Peekaboo way out to dry over there. Does manage to get over to the tomb in time to be able to give a nice heal to Dillypoo there as the smoke bomb comes out. Beats by Drake down to about 40% health, just barely getting that bop before Rubcub gets put into that kidney shot. It's going to defuse all of that damage for a very brief period of time, just enough for that to wear off, and Rubcub's going to pop his Avenging Wrath and start healing him back up again.
Yeah, I like Rubcub actually throwing out those bops right away. At the end of last game, he had both of them still available when they ended up losing, so just throwing them out, diffusing some of these swaps, and avoiding using his trinket and his bubble are very, very important, but that is the full kidney shot on the Rubcub. The Garrote on the Drake right away. If there's going to be any follow-up on the Cubs, it's going to be that Wyvern Sting, and now Beats by Drake in a little bit of trouble, down to 40% HP. Still has the save of the Light Proc, but another bop just instantly coming out from Rubcubs, and I really, really like that. He's going to still have this save by the Light Proc if he needs it, but he's going to be completely fine with that bop for now. But it
looks like there might
maybe
be...
someone DC'd, yeah.
Yeah, Beats by Drake has been standing still for a little while now, which makes me kind of wonder if something happened here. Not really sure what's going on at the moment.
Looks like Peekaboo wants to get a kill. I guess they decided
Play to
whatever
win.
it takes. We'll play to win, whatever it takes. Peekaboo going to end that game, it looks like. And every kill begins with Kidney is going to take it 3-2.
It looks like it. I'm not sure. At the end of the series, I will get in contact with the teams. But yeah, right now, every kill begins with K will advance to the finals if they win this game. There we go. It was after the 45-second mark in the very beginning of the series. So, yeah, there wasn't really a replay available unless both teams agree to it. But something to note is that I do feel like as the game goes longer and longer, and maybe even going into dampening, that may give the Warlock DK Holy Pally team more of an advantage, which is why they don't want to wait at all. I'm not exactly sure. But there it is. All right. Not my favorite ending to such an epic series.
Yeah.
Kind of disappointing.
Ideal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we'll see.